Hello and welcome to Boom Fact Check. A few days ago, Niti Aayog put out a report saying that digital transactions and the value of them had gone up almost 23 times. Sorry, the volume of those transactions had gone up 23 times. So we decided to delve a little deeper, and of course subsequently reports put out by many newspapers and media organizations quoted Reserve Bank of India data to say that in effect the numbers were actually much lower. So we decided to go a little deeper and look at the overall scope of digital payments and what's happening in the country and how does that get really divided. And I'm joined by Vivek Kaul, author, columnist, who also writes for equitymaster.com. Vivek, thank you very much for joining us. Vivek has been working a lot in this space and also been diving into the data on a weekly basis. So he has a fairly current understanding of what's happening. So Vivek, first, let's understand what this whole landscape of digital payments is. Walk us through, what is digital when I actually, do something online and transact, and what is not digital?
Okay, I mean, so broadly, it's safe to say what is not cash is digital.
Okay.
So when you sort of use your debit card to buy something from what we call a point of sale machine, you're essentially carrying out a digital transaction. When you use your credit card, you're doing the same. When you use Paytm to pay for your Uber cab or something else, you are on a digital transaction. When you transfer money from one account to another account, you're on a digital transaction. There is one point which is slightly different here, and which is that when you transfer money within the same bank, that at least the data for that does not get put out as a digital transaction. But if you to transfer money between banks, that gets counted as a digital transaction. So there is, but so broadly it's safe to say what is not.
Right. So the discussion on this now, digital transactions have been rising in tempo for a while now, right? But we're obviously talking about it a lot more because of demonetization. Now tell us what's been happening since the month of November and November 8th in specific.
Okay. So if you look at digital transaction data, and what I follow is a table which was put out by RBI in late March as a part of a report they did on demonetization. And so it's very interesting. So if you were to add all the the volume of the various digital transactions, in November we were at around 50 crore digital transactions. This jumped by 50% to 75 crore in December because there was simply no cash going around. In January it fell to 70 crores. In February it fell to 60 crores.
So we're talking about numbers now, number of transactions.
Yes. 60 crores. And finally in March it went up to around 70 crores. So now the question is whether did the digital transactions go up because of demonetization? Yes, they did, but then they fell as well. And one point that one needs to take care of is that in March, being the financial year end, people pay taxes, they settle accounts, so on and so forth. So that's one explanation for digital transactions spiking in March. The other explanation is that RBI has been printing and pumping money into the economy in the aftermath of demonetization. And if you look at the rate of increase in currency circulation, that has fallen dramatically during the month of March. At the beginning of March, it was at close to 4%. By the end, it had fallen to 1.7%. So that basically has caused a shortage of cash. You must have read all these news reports about ATMs running out of money again.
Once again.
So that again is another reason as to why transactions have spiked up in the month of March.
Right. So now let's take up, I'll come back to this but in a moment, but let's take the components of digital transactions, right? So let's take the biggest one, which is NEFT, right? Which is what most of us use when we transfer money from, let's say, my bank account to your bank account online. I go to the bank's website, I transfer and it goes. How big is that chunk of the entire chunk?
It's a significantly big chunk. I don't remember the exact
number. It's the majority,
but
right? And is that, are you seeing any trend changes in that?
Yes, it fell in the month of February and it went up again in the month of March.
Okay, so this is, you're saying, is the broader trend that you're seeing?
It's in line with the overall trend.
Right. Okay, now let's look at the 2 or 3 sort of components which people have been talking about and saying that have benefited because of demonetization. So one is wallets and the second is UPI. So what are the trends?
So wallets basically have gone up, but the jump is not really too big. As far as UPI is concerned, the numbers are too small to be even taken seriously.
So
there is a jump.
The figure I have is about 2,100 crores in December. March is about 2,148 crores.
You're talking about these are value, not volume.
Yes.
So the volume of UPI in the overall scheme of things is next to. It's. I mean, if you assume it as zero, you're not going to sort of come to a wrong conclusion.
And what about wallets?
Wallets, I think the last that I checked were around 7 crores or something.
Okay, yeah. 7 crore transactions.
Yes.
Right. So 70 million transactions.
Yes.
So are you saying that there is no clear differentiating trend between the components of digital transactions or digital pathways?
In a way, yes. Yeah.
Okay. So they all behave similarly, whether it's large NEFT transactions, which many of us do regularly, versus small e-wallets, UPI.
Also, it's probably safe to say that one needs to wait a little more to come to a conclusion. So if we have data, let's say till around June, July, then maybe a sort of then if at all there is a difference between various forms of digital, that would come out.
Right. So what then we are saying is that this trend line is really a continuation of the trend line that was established much before demonetization.
Yes, I mean in a way yes, and there was some spike because of demonetization. There is no denying that. But saying that we've seen reports where I think one of the ministries said that the thing has gone up by almost 5 times or 6 times. I mean, all that's not true.
So therefore, we've settled back to a pattern that we were in any case following before demonetization, except for some spikes, as you said.
Yes, but again, you would have to. I think we should wait for April data to come to that conclusion. So
because you're saying that in Feb it went down, in March it went up again, and we don't know what will happen in April. But except that if you look at last year, you're saying March.
Last year basically it went up by around 10% in March and it fell by around 4.5% again in April. So if that trend were to sort of repeat itself, then the number of transactions should come down.
Right. Okay. So let me then ask you a little more anecdotally. What's your sense on where we are going as a digital cashless society?
I mean, see, I have 2 views on it. So my first view is obviously, digital is necessary. It's the right way to go forward. But at the same time, you can't force it down, the throats of people as is happening right now. So if you look at the trend, it's a very clear trend. The number of digital transactions have been going up and they will continue to go up because as people earn more, as financial inclusion spreads, as people start using cards and they realize it's beneficial, it'll go up. But trying to sort of force it down is something I'm not comfortable with.
No, but you're saying forcing it down is resulting in more people using it, or it's making no difference? I think
no. So it will make a difference because once people, there is not enough, there isn't enough
I'm
cash.
just saying, even if you were to look at the last 3 months of behavior.
So if you look at the March data, I mean, it's gone up by, it's gone up from some 60 crores to 69 crores, and one of the reasons for it is because there isn't enough cash going around right now. So I mean, whether that's
because cash has been throttled in some ways, people are forced.
People have. Use. So I mean, you look at the credit and debit card data for point of sale.
I was going to come to that.
Point of sales transactions. It has gone up between February and March. I think it's gone up to around 2.23 crore. 2.3 crore transactions from 1.8 crore. So, and that is primarily because of the fact that there isn't enough cash going around.
Right. So. But I'm also seeing that in the case of credit card, then from 470 million transactions or 471 million transactions in December, in March it's 382 million.
So it's, if you compare it with December data,
so December is the outlier.
Is the outlier. But if you compare it with November, when demonetization actually started, we are still up. But in comparison to December, we are down.
Okay. So what's your sense on how things are going to pan out in the next 6 months, let's say?
See, I have a feeling that on the whole, digital transactions will continue to grow. Now, whether
what rate in your estimation?
See, it's difficult to.
But it's a gentle rate, I think, that as opposed to anything dramatic.
It will be a normal, like it's been growing over the years. It will continue to grow, and I feel that demonetization really is not going to make much of a difference unless the cash shortage continues. So.
And what's your sense about the way the components of cashless, as we've spoken about, whether it's e-wallets, UPI, IMPS, all of those could grow? Or could people switch between them, or how do you think that's going to shape up?
See, as far as the various forms of transferring money between banks are concerned, they will continue to grow. I mean, there's no denying that. I'm not so sure about wallets because most of them do not have a business model. So it's not got to do anything to do with technology or the fact that they're not up to the mark, but it's just that they don't seem to be making any money. So until VCs keep pumping money, they'll keep running. But the moment VCs run out of patience, it's difficult.
And wallets in any case are an intermediary platform, as in you transfer to wallets, and wallets in turn, because you can't transfer directly, like in the case of paying for a cab or a Uber or an Ola. Okay, so what about IMPS and UPI?
I think that IMPS will continue to grow. There is no denying that. UPI will also grow because given the fact that it's being promoted so relentlessly by the government, so somewhere down the line it will have an impact, and that's not a bad thing, in its own way. But as of now, the UPI transactions, as a portion of overall transactions, are a very small number. So.
Right, and it's an average of 4,000 rupees from what I could gather per transaction.
I haven't.
Yeah, and do you feel that if we are to sort of migrate to a truly cashless society, is that something that you foresee, or this is of course more anecdotal and subjective? Culturally, we will reach a point and then really stop because cash is still a major part of our lives.
A totally cashless society is not something which is desirable, and for the simple reason because that will allow the government to confiscate your cash. I mean, if you look at a lot of European countries right now which have negative rates of interest, if you put money in a bank, you will lose money rather than. So it's not, it's a good thing from the point of view of central bankers and the government, because it allows them to seize the cash that you have. But from from an individual point of view, I think some amount of cash is very necessary.
Right. So that's a good note to end on. And the feel of cash and the rustle of the rupee.
And I mean, it's convenient at one point of time, and it's also I mean, every digital transaction leaves an identification mark, which cash doesn't.
Right. So, and that's something that a lot of people like.
People would want. I mean, even if see, it's not. A lot of people think that only if you have black money do you sort of want cash. I mean, that's not really true. I mean, I don't want everything that I buy or everything that I do to be digitally available. So.
Right. Vivek, we've run out of time. Thank you very much. And I'll also like to tell those who are viewing now and later that Vivek has written a very interesting book called India's Big Government, The Intrusive State and How It's Hurting Us. Do buy it. It's available on Amazon.
Yes, it is.
And of course, and you might well use a e-wallet or a UPI. Thank you so much, Vivek.